In 2022, millions of people truly began speaking with machines for the first time. ChatGPT was born. Artificial intelligence stopped being an abstract technology buried in laboratories and academic papers and became a conversational partner anyone could reach in just 2 clicks. Within only 2 months of its launch, the service surpassed 100 million users. For comparison, Twitter needed about 5 years to reach that milestone. Facebook took 4.5, and Instagram more than 2. In just a few short years, the small nonprofit OpenAI transformed into one of the most influential technology companies on the planet. Today, most modern chatbots rely in one way or another on the ideas and architectures popularized by OpenAI. It's no coincidence that ChatGPT has become almost synonymous with the very phrase artificial intelligence. But along with the technological revolution came another story. A story about the rapid concentration of power in the hands of a few. Those who control AI models gain influence over education, media, software development, marketing, finance, and even government. Real-world examples already show how sensitive information can leak into systems like ChatGPT. In the spring of 2025, an Australian emergency services employee uploaded a spreadsheet containing the personal data of about 3,000 people, including names, contacts, and medical information. In the summer of 2025, a senior U.S. cybersecurity official uploaded internal documents into the system. Research suggests that roughly 77% of employees at various companies have at least once uploaded corporate documents, code, or financial reports into chatbots. It's important to understand, OpenAI is no longer just a startup with a successful product. It has become a new digital infrastructure on which entire industries are beginning to build. And the deeper these models penetrate the economy, the harder it becomes to imagine a world without them. This episode is dedicated to the man standing at the epicenter of the AI revolution, Sam Altman, the CEO and co-founder of OpenAI, a figure seen by some as a symbol of progress and hope, and by others as the embodiment of cold-blooded Machiavellian strategy. In this episode, I also attempt to answer a crucial question. Is artificial intelligence the greatest technological breakthrough of our time, or an economic bubble powerful enough to shake the global economy? Journalists often compare Sam Altman to Steve Jobs. In November 2023, the New York Times wrote that Altman had spent the previous year assuming Jobs' mantle as the Silicon Valley entrepreneur responsible for shaping the future. The comparison seems logical. Altman achieved a stunning breakthrough with the launch of ChatGPT. Like Jobs, he thinks in revolutionary terms and persuades those around him to believe in what once seemed impossible. Like Jobs, he sometimes alienates his own allies. Like Jobs, he had a close partner responsible for technical execution. And like Jobs, Altman was even fired from the company he founded, though we'll get to that story a little later. Altman himself occasionally hints at these parallels. In May 2025, OpenAI announced the acquisition of the startup I.O., founded by former chief designer Jony Ive. It became the largest deal in OpenAI's history. The team had been working on a mysterious device designed to completely reshape how people interact with artificial intelligence. While presenting the ambitious project, Altman suggested that Jobs himself would have been incredibly proud to see Ive join OpenAI. The message was subtle but unmistakable, Altman positioning himself as the symbolic successor to Jobs. And yet, the two men represent very different kinds of leaders. Jobs was obsessed with perfection and control, sometimes spending years refining a product and delaying its release if it failed to meet his exact standards. Altman operates differently. His strategy is speed launch early, move fast, and capture the market before competitors can react. And it's exactly this pace that worries many observers. Artificial intelligence is being embedded into the economy. Education, and even government systems faster than society can create rules to govern it. The risk isn't just the dramatic scenario of AI triggering some futuristic catastrophe. A far more immediate danger may be economic. Artificial intelligence could inflate the largest technology bubble since the dot-com era. perhaps the largest in history. If AI fails to deliver on its promises, markets could collapse, erasing trillions in market value and triggering a crisis that would affect not just the United States, but the global economy. And this story became even more intriguing when I noticed something curious about today's tech optimist, Sam Altman, the man who now speaks in almost every interview about the bright future AI will bring. He often repeats that AGI could become the greatest force ever to increase human prosperity. But it wasn't always this way. In the past, Altman spoke in a very different tone. He warned openly that artificial intelligence could spiral out of control and called it the most serious existential threat humanity has faced since the invention of nuclear weapons. At one point, he even said, "Artificial intelligence is likely the greatest threat to humanity." So what changed? Is this simply the evolution of his thinking or something more strategic? What exactly is happening inside the mind of the man many now consider one of the most powerful figures in technology today? To understand who Sam Altman really is, a visionary pioneer or simply someone who happened to be in the right place at the right time, we need to look closely at how his story began. Altman was born on the 22nd of April 1985 in Chicago and spent most of his childhood in Street Louis, far from the culture of Silicon Valley and the epicenter of the tech revolution. He was the eldest of 4 children in a Jewish family. His mother worked as a dermatologist, and his father was involved in real estate. The Altman household valued education, intellectual curiosity, and ambition. Financially, the family lived comfortably. Comfortable enough that when Sam was 8 years old, his parents bought him a brand new Apple Macintosh LC2, a computer that at the time cost roughly what many American families spent in an entire month. That machine changed everything. Young Sam became obsessed with it. He spent hours alone in his room, learning to program, dismantling the computer, and putting it back together again, just to understand how it worked. Programming quickly became his main passion, and Steve Jobs became his hero. The image of a rebellious college dropout who changed the world through technology left a deep mark on Altman's imagination. As he grew older, his parents enrolled him in John Burroughs School, an elite private school known for preparing students for top universities. There, Altman formed a close relationship with a computer science teacher who introduced him to neural networks. In the early 2000s, neural networks looked nothing like they do today. They were small mathematical systems run manually through command line terminals, essentially collections of formulas and adjustable weights, trained on very simple datasets. After graduating from high school, Altman enrolled in computer science at Stanford University with support from his parents. Stanford is widely known as one of the most important breeding grounds for the global tech industry. The university produced figures like Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the founders of Google, as well as the controversial entrepreneur Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal. Yet, despite Stanford's prestige, Altman himself wasn't particularly enthusiastic about academic life. Instead of focusing on lectures and exams, he spent much of his time playing poker. For Altman, poker became something of a training ground for strategic thinking. Later, he would say that the game taught him how to read people and make fast, high-stakes decisions under uncertainty. Also, in my view, it was at the poker table that Sam Altman discovered another passion, not just for strategy, but for management and influence. Over time, this fascination would begin to outweigh his original love for technology and programming. In 2005, following the path of famous tech rebels like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and Mark Zuckerberg, Altman dropped out of Stanford University to start his own company. The project was called Looped, a mobile app that allowed users to share their location with friends directly through their phones. Today, this idea feels almost trivial, but at the time, it was something entirely new. The problem was timing. Altman launched Looped before the era of the iPhone and the App Store. Building a mobile startup back then was painfully difficult. Companies had to negotiate directly with mobile carriers, pre-install software on devices, and operate within a highly restricted mobile ecosystem. Despite these obstacles, Altman pushed forward relentlessly. He worked up to 16 hours a day, surviving on instant noodles and ice cream while trying to keep the company alive. In 2008, the 3-year-old Altman even presented Looped at an Apple conference and pitched the idea directly to his childhood hero, Steve Jobs. Jobs reportedly admired the concept, and at its peak, the startup reached a valuation of $175 million. Yet the product never gained widespread adoption. Looped struggled to attract enough users and slowly faded from public attention. Finally, in 2012, 7 years after its founding, the company was sold to Green Dot Corporation for $43 million, with Altman personally receiving about $5 million from the deal. It might sound like a good deal, but by the standards of Silicon Valley, where trillions of dollars circulate, it was considered a failure. And more importantly, Sam Altman himself saw it that way. He wanted more. Yet despite the disappointing outcome, Looped played a crucial role in his career. It was precisely this startup that opened the doors for Altman to enter Y Combinator, one of the most influential startup accelerators in the world. The idea behind Y Combinator is simple. When young entrepreneurs have a promising idea but lack experience, funding, or connections, they bring it to the accelerator and receive mentorship, investment, and access to a powerful network. Thanks to his charisma and communication skills, Altman quickly won the trust of Y Combinator's founder, Paul Graham. Graham later recalled their first meeting. "I remember thinking this is probably what Bill Gates was like when he was young, with decades of entrepreneurial experience behind him." Graham soon became a mentor to Altman, partly because the two simply got along so well. But Graham also noticed something unusual about him. As he once said, "Sam is extremely good at achieving power. You could parachute him onto an island full of cannibals, and in 5 years, he'd be king." And in many ways, that prediction proved accurate. Before long, Altman rose to become president of Y Combinator. At just 30 years old, he found himself leading one of the most powerful startup accelerators in the tech world. The position gave him something even more valuable than money access. Altman suddenly had direct relationships with many of the most influential people across Silicon Valley. His social capital began growing exponentially. During his 5 years as president, Altman dramatically expanded the scale of Y Combinator. Under his leadership, the accelerator began accepting hundreds of startup teams every season. Altman also recognized something important. The world's best founders weren't all living in Silicon Valley. They were scattered across the globe. So he pushed for programs that allowed entrepreneurs from anywhere in the world to participate, turning Y Combinator into a truly global launchpad for startups. Over the years, under Altman's leadership, Y Combinator helped launch around 2,000 companies. Its portfolio eventually included giants such as Airbnb, Dropbox, Twitch, and many others. While working at the accelerator, Sam Altman increasingly began appearing in public, giving interviews, speaking at conferences, and sharing his views on the future of technology. One topic kept coming up again and again: the safety of artificial intelligence. In 2014, another event occurred that would become extremely important for our story. Elon Musk read the book Superintelligence: Paths, Dangers, Strategies by philosopher Nick Bostrom, and it deeply disturbed him. One particular thought experiment from the book became famous: the paperclip maximizer. The scenario is simple but terrifying. Imagine a super-intelligent AI created with a single goal to manufacture paperclips. If the system becomes powerful enough, it might begin converting all available resources into paperclips. First factories, then cities, then entire ecosystems. In the extreme version of the thought experiment, the AI eventually expands beyond Earth, converting the entire planet and even parts of the universe into raw material for making more paperclips. After reading Bostrom's book, Musk began speaking passionately about the dangers of artificial intelligence in interviews and conferences. He warned that society was developing powerful AI systems without sufficient safety measures, creating what he believed could become an existential threat to humanity. Musk repeatedly stated that artificial intelligence might ultimately prove more dangerous than nuclear weapons. To many people, these warnings sounded exaggerated, even provocative. But Musk appeared completely sincere in his concern. As he once said, "I think most people don't realize how quickly machine intelligence is advancing. I'm trying to convince people to slow down." In 2014, Google was the undisputed leader in artificial intelligence. The company was rapidly acquiring AI research labs, including the renowned British startup DeepMind. The deal was valued at roughly $500 million. And even though DeepMind was already considered one of the most promising AI research teams in the world, the acquisition signaled something bigger, a massive bet on the future of artificial intelligence. Within just a few years, Google had gathered nearly 80% of the world's top AI specialists under its umbrella. Around this time, Elon Musk had a conversation with Google's CEO, Larry Page. The discussion left Musk deeply unsettled. He realized that Page and much of Google's leadership simply didn't see artificial intelligence as a risk at all. Their view was openly techno-optimistic. According to them, the rise of AI was simply the next natural step in the evolution of intelligence, and trying to slow it down would be pointless. Any talk about existential dangers, they argued, was exaggerated. Page reportedly dismissed Musk's concerns entirely, suggesting he was being paranoid. Musk responded by warning that Google was rapidly building a monopoly in artificial intelligence and that such concentration of power could easily spiral out of control. In the end, he came to a simple conclusion. If he couldn't stop Google's expansion into AI, then he would have to create a competing organization, one that would develop artificial intelligence while strictly prioritizing safety. That idea ultimately brought Elon Musk together with Sam Altman. By the end of 2015, the names Elon Musk and Sam Altman were not equally famous. Musk was already a global celebrity, while Altman was still known mainly inside the tech world. Yet he had a reputation as one of the most promising managers in Silicon Valley. In that same year, Forbes included him on its list of the best venture capitalists under 30. Even before meeting Musk, Altman had gained a certain mythological status among founders as the prophet of startup incubation through Y Combinator. Colleagues described him as a demanding professional and an unusually bold visionary, someone willing to challenge conventional wisdom and take radical steps to make his ideas real. In May 2015, Altman sent Musk an email outlining a bold proposal, the creation of a Manhattan Project for artificial intelligence. Inspired by the famous Manhattan Project that produced the first nuclear weapons during World War II. Altman wrote, "I've thought a lot about whether it's even possible to stop humanity from developing AI, and I think almost certainly not. If it does happen, it would be nice if someone other than Google did it first. Do you think it would be good if Y Combinator launched a Manhattan Project for AI?" Musk was immediately struck by how closely their thinking aligned. The partnership seemed almost inevitable. Musk could provide funding and global influence, while Altman brought organizational talent and a remarkable ability to attract brilliant people. Soon after, Musk arranged a meeting that would prove historic. Later that year, a private dinner took place in Silicon Valley that many would later call one of the most important gatherings in the history of technology. Around 10 influential figures were seated at the table, including Elon Musk and Sam Altman. Also present was Greg Brockman, the former CTO of Stripe, already widely respected as one of the strongest operational leaders of his generation. But perhaps the most critical participant was Ilya Sutskever at the time, a researcher at Google and not yet 30 years old. Despite his age, Sutskever was already considered one of the world's leading experts in machine learning. That night, the foundation was laid for what would soon become OpenAI. His supervisor at Google was the legendary AI researcher Geoffrey Hinton, often called the godfather of artificial intelligence. Elon Musk couldn't offer Ilya Sutskever a salary that matched what he was earning at Google, but Sutskever was inspired by something far more ambitious. The vision presented by Musk and Sam Altman wasn't about building technology for corporate profit. It was about creating artificial intelligence for the benefit of all humanity, not just the owners of big tech. During that dinner, the group discussed possible futures of AI. debated risks, and brainstormed how to build an organization capable of competing with Google's growing dominance in the field. Musk announced that he was prepared to commit $1 billion in funding to the project. With Musk's capital, Greg Brockman's operational experience, Sutskever's expertise in machine learning, and Altman coordinating the overall strategy, the group believed they had assembled a dream team. And so, in 2015, a non-profit organization with a symbolic name was born, OpenAI. The name itself meant Open Artificial Intelligence. For more than a century, scientists and science fiction writers had imagined machines capable not only of executing commands, but of reasoning, learning, and thinking independently. Now, that vision was slowly becoming reality. The founders believed that such transformative technology should never belong solely to governments or giant corporations. Their mission was simple and ambitious: to create safe artificial intelligence for the benefit of humanity and to share their research openly with the world instead of keeping it secret for profit. But very soon, reality began to diverge from this idealistic vision. When OpenAI first appeared in 2015, it hardly looked like a company that would reshape the world. The team didn't even have an office. The early researchers simply worked out of Greg Brockman's apartment. Despite these modest beginnings, the organization had already secured more than $1 billion in pledged funding from various investors. That money allowed them to begin attracting some of the world's best AI researchers. Brockman later recalled the atmosphere. "We basically sit on the couch, behind the kitchen counter, and on the bed. That's where all the work gets done." It's crazy to think something this big started that way. At that stage, neither Altman nor Musk was involved in the daily management of the organization. Altman continued running Y Combinator, while Musk remained focused on his other companies. Day-to-day leadership at OpenAI fell primarily to Sutskever and Brockman. Yet despite the improvised setup, the team shared one powerful vision: the creation of artificial general intelligence. There are many ways to define this, but at its core, AGI, artificial general intelligence, is intelligence that can match, or even surpass, humans in almost every task. And here's the crucial part: AGI must be able to learn skills it has never been taught. This is why some experts warn that the first true superintelligent machine could be humanity's last invention. Once we build a machine smarter than ourselves, one capable of creating even more advanced machines, there may be nothing left for us to invent. A new era will dawn not just for human civilization, but for all life on Earth. OpenAI was the first to articulate a super goal: the creation of God. In their vision, AI isn't just a tool. It's a force that can solve every problem we face today. It could eliminate unemployment, cure disease, eradicate poverty. But with such potential comes unprecedented risk. Disinformation will become hyper-realistic, cyber attacks more devastating than ever, and fully automated weapons could operate with terrifying autonomy. The team at OpenAI knew what they were building could be both the greatest invention in history and the greatest threat. AI won't hate humans. It won't plot against us, but it could simply become too powerful to control. Think of it like how humans treat animals. We don't hate animals when we carve a highway through a forest. We just don't consult them. And the same could happen with AI. Give it a task to help the Earth, and the consequences might be catastrophic. A superintelligence might conclude that the planet is safer without humans at all. Sam Altman has voiced this same tension. On one hand, he claims AI could cure all disease and unlock entirely new realities. On the other, he acknowledges the razor-thin line between salvation and catastrophe. On the other hand, if this technology spiraled out of control, humanity itself could be at risk. The irony? While debating the fate of civilization and the future of the human race, the team was simultaneously building bots for video games. At the very start, OpenAI devoted countless hours to creating a bot capable of playing Dota 2. Their reasoning was simple. If an AI could grasp the complexity of a virtual game world, it might one day understand the complexity of our real world. But most people didn't take them seriously. In fact, many laughed at the idea that AI could ever become powerful enough to threaten humans. At that time, AI was still rudimentary. One of the first researchers would later admit they were experimenting blindly, often relying more on luck than logic. Since the 1990s, AI had endured decades of slow, grinding progress. This era would later be remembered as the AI winter. After the explosive hype of the 1980s, breakthroughs had stalled. Funding dried up, and many researchers abandoned the field for more promising ventures. Then, in 2015, just as OpenAI was taking its first steps, Google's AlphaGo neural network achieved a historic milestone. It defeated a professional Go player 5-0. Go, as many know, is a labyrinth of strategic depth. By 2016, AlphaGo would crush the legendary champion Lee Sedol 4-1, sending shockwaves around the world. The era of serious AI breakthroughs had arrived. But this hype revealed a glaring limitation. Want AI to perform a new task, write text, solve equations, or recognize images? You had to start from scratch. Each neural network required painstakingly curated data and endless retraining. The tech satire show Silicon Valley captured this absurdity perfectly. Train an AI on enough examples, it could identify a hot dog or not. But beyond that, useless. Neural networks were specialists, masters of one thing, and one thing only. Meanwhile, the human brain remained astonishingly versatile, analyzing sights, sounds, touch, taste, abstract logic, and reasoning across contexts. All because humans possessed what the world calls general intelligence. Everything changed in 2017. In June, a small team of Google engineers published a paper titled "Attention is All You Need." It introduced a revolutionary AI architecture, the Transformer. Unlike previous systems, which relied on meticulously labeled and structured datasets, the Transformer could process raw text as it appeared naturally online. No human needed to tell it what mattered or what didn't. It could learn faster, scale effortlessly, and produce results of far higher quality. Yet Google, massive and cautious, moved slowly. Even though they had built their own Transformer-based chatbot, it wasn't released open source. They feared mistakes, absurd outputs, legal repercussions, and the reputational risk of a rogue AI speaking publicly. Their bot could reliably make mistakes, hallucinating facts, generating legally risky statements about real people, reproducing racial, gender, and political biases, giving reckless medical or financial advice, and weighing in on sensitive topics from elections to religion in heavily regulated countries. For Google, that meant potential lawsuits, antitrust scrutiny, and multi-billion-dollar fines. That's why the company moved cautiously. In hindsight, that slow approach was a critical mistake, a gap OpenAI seized. Ilya Sutskever was among the first to read Google's paper and immediately recognized the Transformer's revolutionary potential. He shared it with the team, and OpenAI dove headfirst into experimentation. That's when GPT Generative Pre-trained Transformer was born, suddenly able to handle almost any query, far surpassing previous AI. The internet, once just a tool for communication, had become the perfect training ground. Nearly every book, article, and piece of content could be used to teach a neural network, giving OpenAI a data advantage that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Naturally, this approach raised legal and ethical questions. OpenAI knew asking for permission from large companies would spark resistance or royalty disputes. So they quietly used the data, learning faster, scaling better, and producing far superior results. When GPT-2 was ready, the team hesitated. They feared it could become an information weapon if released openly. On the 14th of February 2019, OpenAI announced it would not release GPT-2 publicly. The announcement caused a global stir. Wired magazine ran the headline, "The AI text generator that's too dangerous to make public." OpenAI kept the training datasets secret, signaling a shift. The company was no longer purely open source, and the power of AI had entered a new, high-stakes phase. By then, Elon Musk had already resigned from OpenAI's board. Officially, it was a conflict of interest. Tesla was developing its own AI. But the real story was different. Musk wanted control of OpenAI. He proposed becoming CEO and merging it with Tesla, but the board refused. Musk left, quietly marking the start of a high-stakes power struggle over the future of artificial intelligence. OpenAI was no longer just a research lab. It was now a potential architect of the world's most transformative technology. Unfortunately for OpenAI, this meant Musk would take his investment money with him. He had promised a total of $1 billion, but by that point, he had paid less than $100 million, leaving OpenAI unable to raise the remaining amount. The company faced a serious question: where would the money come from? Many employees began leaving, and GPT development stalled. To save the company, Sam Altman proposed a fateful decision to the board. To increase their ability to attract capital and investors, OpenAI decided to transition from a nonprofit to a for-profit model. They also announced they would license their technology for use by other companies. Many saw this as a complete betrayal of the company's original vision, but Sam Altman was confident that a commercial model would save OpenAI from extinction. Soon, he partnered with Microsoft, which agreed to invest $1 billion. With Microsoft's massive computing power and OpenAI's advanced AI model, the deal became mutually beneficial. Yet, OpenAI now faced accusations of inconsistency. Its original mission had been to create an alternative to the large tech corporations, and now it was helping one of the most powerful companies in the world grow even stronger. OpenAI had abandoned its original vision of democratizing artificial intelligence. Once they possessed a truly powerful product, they refused to release it as open source. In February 2024, Elon Musk filed a lawsuit against the company, publicly demanding that the name be changed from OpenAI to Closed AI. After transitioning to a commercial model, a formal CEO was needed, and Sam Altman stepped into the role. Paul Graham's quote about Altman and Cannibal Island now seemed more relevant than ever. In 2020, OpenAI unveiled GPT-3, a language model trained on massive internet datasets. But the real turning point came later. On the 30th of November 2022, OpenAI publicly released its chatbot, ChatGPT. Altman posted a simple tweet: "We launched ChatGPT today. Try talking to it here." Employees began betting on how many users it would get in the first few months. The highest estimate was 100,000 users. They were spectacularly wrong. ChatGPT went viral and quickly captured the world's attention. Within just 2 months, it became the fastest-growing app in history, reaching 100 million users. This unexpected growth was incredibly encouraging for OpenAI. But internally, unease persisted. Some employees felt the release had been rushed. Certain members of the security team, including Ilya Sutskever, weren't even aware of the launch and argued that people could misuse the technology. Obvious risks included hackers exploiting the model to find vulnerabilities in code or to aid criminal activity. The team also knew that the model made many factual errors, known as hallucinations. Nevertheless, despite the security department's concerns, ChatGPT launched, and the public reaction was overwhelmingly positive. Unlike previous chatbots, which often felt rigid or useless if questions weren't formatted correctly, ChatGPT seemed knowledgeable, talkative, and convincingly human-like. Within months of its launch, Microsoft increased its stake in the company, investing another $10 billion. The launch of ChatGPT also dramatically accelerated the overall race in artificial intelligence. Investors poured more money into AI projects than ever before, and major tech companies rushed to release their own competing models. OpenAI appeared to be in the lead. They continued to release new products, increasingly commercialized, offering paid plans and licensing their technology to companies around the world. However, within OpenAI, tensions were mounting between two camps: those pushing for rapid product development and those demanding strict security. The company's star engineer, Ilya Sutskever, began openly voicing his concerns, gradually rallying a group of techno-pessimists around him. Then, A group of 9 current and former OpenAI employees went public, claiming the company was increasingly prioritizing commercial interests over safety. In an open letter, they revealed that strict non-disclosure agreements were stifling honest discussions about AI risks. Similar warnings had come before. Dario Amodei, former VP of Research at OpenAI, left the company with several colleagues and founded Anthropic in 2021, aiming to build a more secure and predictable alternative to ChatGPT, with safety baked in from the start. Yet, despite these internal conflicts, OpenAI kept moving forward. ChatGPT continued its unstoppable rise, and OpenAI's successes with the DALL-E image generator and the Sora video generator only added to the momentum. Sam Altman's vision of AI's possibilities seemed boundless. He spoke of a world of abundance, where technology could eradicate poverty and disease. At a high-profile summit of global leaders, Sam declared, "I think this will be the most transformative and beneficial technology humanity has ever invented. There's nothing I'd rather work on more." But then, the unthinkable happened. Less than 24 hours after that speech, Sam Altman was fired. On the 17th of November 2023, he received a message from Ilya Sutskever asking him to join a video call. Expecting a routine discussion, Sam was stunned to see the entire OpenAI board on the call, except his friend, Greg Brockman. The board informed him he was being removed as CEO. The call ended abruptly, and Sam was immediately blocked from accessing his computer. Imagine the shock. The face of OpenAI, one of the world's most prominent tech companies, suddenly ousted. Minutes later, the board issued a statement, claiming Altman had not been consistently forthright in communications, implying deceit and unreliability. They stated they no longer had confidence in his leadership. The apparent mastermind was Ilya Sutskever, who allegedly opposed Altman's growing influence and worried about the increasingly commercial nature of OpenAI's products. Sutskever believed some new developments could even pose a threat to humanity, concerns Altman largely ignored. The board was also wary of Altman building his own empire outside OpenAI, particularly regarding negotiations with investors and Middle Eastern funds. Raising tens, some reports say hundreds of billions, to construct a global AI chip infrastructure. According to the Financial Times and Bloomberg, discussions were underway to radically expand global semiconductor production, aiming to solve the critical shortage of computing power for AI. But to truly understand Sam Altman, another project, WorldCoin, reveals more about his vision. Back in March 2021, Altman published an essay titled "Moore's Law for Everything." In it, he wrote, "My work at OpenAI reminds me every day of the magnitude of socio-economic change that will come sooner than most people realize. If public policy doesn't adapt quickly, most people will be worse off than they are today. The classic Moore's Law predicts that computing power doubles roughly every 2 years. Altman applies this logic to economics. In the age of AI, he argues, the cost of most goods and services will plummet thanks to automation. But there's a catch. If productivity skyrockets while capital remains concentrated among tech owners, inequality will rise at the same pace. To counter this growing social divide, Altman proposed creating a national fund, financed by taxes on large corporations. The proceeds, he suggested, should bypass bureaucracies and be distributed directly to every citizen as regular payments, essentially, a universal basic income. WorldCoin, meanwhile, was designed to create global digital biometric IDs for anyone willing to have their eyes scanned. According to Altman's vision, these initiatives could become the infrastructure for fairly distributing resources to those rendered redundant in the new economy. Yet, on Friday, the 17th of November 2023, Sam was abruptly fired, and OpenAI immediately began searching for a new CEO. But the story didn't end there. By the very next day, events accelerated. Employees, inspired by Altman's bold ideas, effectively rebelled against the board's decision. Greg Brockman resigned in solidarity. Support for Altman snowballed, with an open letter demanding the board review their decision and reinstate him. The letter warned that otherwise, signatories would leave the company and join Altman on a new venture. Almost 90% of OpenAI's staff signed it. In response, Microsoft publicly welcomed Sam and Greg to join them, offering positions to any OpenAI employee willing to leave. Even Ilya Sutskever, who had initially supported Sam's dismissal, reversed his position and publicly expressed regret. Within days, the board was forced to negotiate. By Tuesday, a deal was struck. Most board members who opposed Sam resigned, and he returned as CEO. A celebration followed. In just 5 days, Sam Altman went from being ousted to regaining his position stronger and more unshakable than ever. After all, he played a key role in selecting new, seemingly loyal board members. Having defeated his internal rivals, Altman set his sights on a bold, audacious goal: to turn OpenAI into a monopoly in the AI industry. To achieve this, he kept the core functionality of ChatGPT free while regularly releasing upgraded versions GPT-3, then GPT-4, GPT-4 Turbo, and now GPT-5. GPT was also integrated into browsers, apps, and enterprise tools, embedding itself into the digital infrastructure of daily life. Just 6 months after Altman's return, ChatGPT had become one of the most visited websites on the planet, rivaling Amazon in traffic. People began relying on it daily. Even Google started losing search traffic. With GPT, users no longer needed to browse dozens of articles. They got instant, concise summaries from multiple sources. By the end of 2024, ChatGPT boasted hundreds of millions of regular users. In early 2025, former President Donald Trump announced Stargate, a joint venture between OpenAI, SoftBank, and Oracle. Altman had even managed to win Trump's favor. Stargate's mission: dramatically boost computing power and secure technological sovereignty for the United States. Soon, the Department of Energy, State Department, Treasury, and Pentagon all signed agreements with OpenAI. The U.S. Department of Defense awarded the company roughly $200 million to develop AI tools for government use. The lab that started as a nonprofit had become a contractor for the world's most powerful military. It was clear to everyone in the AI race: Altman had consolidated control, and GPT outperformed all competitors. By 2026, ChatGPT will have around 1 billion users, 800 million actively using it. If I had told this story 6 months ago, it would have ended with, Altman is the most dangerous man on Earth, controlling the most advanced AI and binding the US political and military systems to his technology. He is, in effect, opening Pandora's box, creating a new life form capable of reshaping or even destroying humanity. Today, however, people see it differently. Sam Altman is considered dangerous for another reason. He lies, manipulates, and fuels the AI bubble that could trigger a global economic crisis. I've read and watched dozens of critical reports, and now I'm ready to pull back the curtain on Sam Altman, exposing the mind of perhaps the most dangerous man on the planet. OpenAI has committed to spending over $1 trillion on artificial intelligence infrastructure over the next 8 years, even though the company's annual recurring revenue is only about $20 billion, roughly 2% of what it promises to spend. Something doesn't add up. The United States' economic growth in 2025 was largely driven by investments in AI, and behind it all is Altman's vision. He promises that once we reach a certain threshold of machine learning, every major problem will be solved. The housing crisis, cancer, poverty, climate change, mental health, the failings of democracy, universal basic income, even cures for countless diseases. AI will handle it all. And in return for these promises, Altman asks society to put all its eggs in a single basket. In the OpenAI world, that basket contains our personal data, energy, infrastructure, and enormous amounts of money. The answer to whether Sam Altman can truly be trusted lies in his real calling. Altman is not an engineer, not a scientist. He is an investor, a master dealmaker. He first learned the art of manipulation at the poker table in college, and he never stopped. His entire career reads like a string of moves where cunning and deception secured his goals. Remember his first major exit, Looped, a location-based app? The concept required massive users to monitor, but Altman refused to reveal the real numbers. He claimed they had tens of thousands, when in reality, there were just 500. When Reuters reported this, he insisted the number was 100 times higher and promised proof. He never delivered. Looped was sold to Green Dot, which immediately shut it down, never using a single piece of the technology. Sources say the deal enriched Sequoia Capital and 2 Green Dot board members, a shady arrangement, at best. Altman walked away as soon as legally possible, pocketing $5 million for an app no one wanted. His confidence and sheer audacity impressed some of Silicon Valley's most powerful players. Peter Thiel, PayPal co-founder, poured millions into Altman's venture fund, Hydrazine Capital. Then Paul Graham offered him the presidency of Y Combinator. Altman played his cards perfectly. He promised not to invest in YC through other funds, but his Hydrazine Capital poured most of its money into Y Combinator startups anyway. The issue wasn't the investment itself. It was the conflict of interest. Leading YC while financially backing its startups meant Altman's decisions could serve not just the accelerator, but also his personal gain. So, these were already 2 major lies, and Altman's career was just getting started. To understand how and why OpenAI came into being, you need to grasp the core philosophy of Silicon Valley. It offered tech elites a way to morally justify their actions, to sleep at night with a clear conscience. Effective altruism, on the surface, seems simple. Inspired by Australian philosopher Peter Singer, it boils down to this: do everything you can to maximize happiness for the greatest number of people. For Altman, this philosophy became the perfect justification for his choices. Even as a young man, he decided he wouldn't waste time in soup kitchens or traditional charities. Instead, he would focus on amassing wealth, believing that one day he could donate far more than he ever could by playing nice. He also convinced himself that by climbing the corporate ladder, he could wrest power away from someone more ruthless or inhumane than himself. In theory, if Silicon Valley billionaires fully embraced effective altruism, it could be transformative. They could channel massive wealth to feed the hungry or invest in critical infrastructure. But reality took a different turn. Somewhere along the way, the richest and smartest minds of Silicon Valley grew bored with mundane, traditional altruism and set their sights on grander, more abstract forms of impact. They grew tired of thinking about social programs for ordinary people. Instead, they became obsessed with saving billions of lives from what they saw as an inevitable and existential threat. In their eyes, humanity was walking toward a precipice, and someone had to stop it. That threat: rogue, artificial intelligence. At the time, this was still a niche concern, championed by thinkers like humanist Nick Bostrom. Yet figures such as Elon Musk and even some leading AI researchers began to take it very seriously, fearing the rise of a technological singularity. They imagined a future where AI, capable of improving itself without limit, could spiral out of control. If it decided humanity was expendable, it could evolve into a true global intelligence, what some would call Skynet. For Bostrom, Musk, and Altman, preventing this catastrophic scenario was far more compelling than traditional philanthropy. This futuristic twist on effective altruism became the guiding principle behind OpenAI's creation. And what happened next is well known. To outpace Google and save humanity, Musk joined forces with Altman and his circle of wealthy investors who shared the same concerns. Lacking a fully staffed lab or cutting-edge projects, Musk, Altman, and their team initially operated on ideology alone. They presented OpenAI as open, transparent, and even non-commercial. Instead of offering large salaries, they sold a mission, and it worked. Top researchers flocked to the project despite lower pay. But as Altman steered the company toward a commercial path, he steadily marginalized Musk's influence. Within months, Musk felt the sting of betrayal. OpenAI, the company meant to safeguard humanity from rogue AI, was becoming something potentially far more dangerous. The rapid growth of the company revealed Altman's true strength: his ability to sell a vision. His message was simple, yet powerful. AGI will reshape the world. Betting on the first company to achieve it could be the most profitable move in human history. No proof was needed. Being at the forefront was enough to command attention and investment. Once GPT chat became a global sensation in 2022, Altman went on a worldwide campaign. He met billionaire leaders, held secretive negotiations, and set his sights on government contracts, reaching far beyond Silicon Valley. Today, he invests in every key element for OpenAI's growth. Data is the lifeblood. A large language model cannot exist without massive text corpora. To secure a prime source, Altman acquired a significant stake in Reddit and joined its board. But data was just the beginning. He poured resources into network infrastructure, thermal batteries, and rare earth mining. His strategy is genius. Profit not only from the AI gold rush, but also from the shovels that dig it. The most crucial shovel: energy. Altman has repeatedly warned that future AI will consume electricity on a scale rivaling entire nations. For him, nuclear energy is the answer. He's investing in helium, pushing fusion technology, and Oklo, building compact nuclear reactors. Meanwhile, OpenAI is constructing a massive computing infrastructure. By fall 2025, the company had signed deals approaching $1 trillion. NVIDIA committed to a strategic partnership worth up to $100 billion for data center construction. AMD supplied cutting-edge chips, and Oracle offered cloud computing power. Altman is building not just AI, but the empire to sustain it. All these agreements are expected to provide OpenAI with up to 20 gigawatts of computing power, a staggering scale that positions the company at the very top. With a valuation of $500 billion, OpenAI is now the most valuable startup on the planet. Yet the reality behind the numbers is striking. The company's revenue does not match the scale of its ambitions. In 2025, OpenAI reported approximately $20 billion in revenue, a fraction of the cost of its signed commitments. Even Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, acknowledged that sustaining this growth would require exponential revenue, massive equity raises, or heavy borrowing. This mismatch has sparked warnings of an AI bubble. The Bank of England cautions against overheating, and the head of the International Monetary Fund has echoed concerns. Economists highlight the rapid surge in AI company valuations, the extreme optimism of investors, and the fact that nearly 40% of the S&P 500 index is tied to tech. Almost half of the global stock market now depends on AI-driven firms. By some estimates, this AI bubble is already 17 times larger than the infamous dot-com bubble. The potential fallout is staggering. The dot-com crash erased roughly $5 trillion in market value. How much could be lost this time? Analysts warn of systemic limits: energy shortages, chip scarcity, and data bottlenecks. Combined with lightning-fast technological change that could render entire data centers obsolete before they've paid for themselves. At its core, this industrial bubble functions like this. OpenAI raises massive investments and spends them on computing infrastructure, while NVIDIA profits by selling the chips. A cycle of mutual dependency, fueled by speculation, with enormous risk if the system falters. Oracle signs deals and builds sprawling data centers. Share prices climb, valuations soar, but real value creation, minimal. The entire AI ecosystem has become a tightly interconnected web. Stocks rise based on expectations of the future, yet that future depends entirely on continued capital inflows, which themselves rely on rising stock prices. Recently, however, the momentum has slowed. It's not just startups under pressure. Banks, foundations, and even government-backed financing could feel the strain. Not long ago, OpenAI's CFO publicly admitted, nervously and haltingly, that the company might require federal support. Translated, that means ordinary American taxpayers could shoulder the fallout from Altman's audacious bets. So what happens if the AI bubble bursts? The most immediate risk for the US is a sharp correction in the stock market. Investors, pension funds, venture capitalists, and banks financing AI infrastructure would take the hardest hit. A collapse in AI valuations could trigger a chain reaction, slashing consumption, freezing investments, and squeezing the labor market. Government-backed projects would push some of the costs onto the public budget. Globally, the fallout depends on which countries are heavily invested in AI infrastructure. Semiconductor producers, cloud providers, and energy suppliers would be most vulnerable. A sudden drop in demand for data centers and chips would ripple across equipment, raw materials, and energy markets. A U.S. correction would rapidly spread to Europe and Asia through stock indices and investment flows. Yet some see silver linings. Jeff Bezos, for one, argues this is less a financial crisis and more an industrial one. Industrial bubbles, he suggests, are different. Once the dust settles and the winners emerge, society could benefit from groundbreaking inventions. He makes a compelling point. The companies that survived the dot-com crash are now the giants of the world. Amazon, Jeff Bezos' creation, is one of them. Altman's story teaches us two things. First, we live in entirely different coordinate systems. Everyone has their own fears, their own goals, their own planning horizons. Ordinary people worry about survival, stability, and making ends meet. Billionaires and political leaders. They play a different game, a game of influence, expansion, and power. Their moves are measured in billions and decades, not in monthly paychecks. Their stakes aren't just the present, they're the future they've imagined. Altman is neither a cartoonish villain nor a purely malevolent visionary. He's a man shaped by an environment where his frame of reference became extreme altruism, fueled by the thrill of leading the AI race. Machiavelli once wrote, "To stay at the top, one must compromise morality, manipulate, and eliminate competitors." The AI industry, despite all its talk of saving humanity, follows the same rules. Second, technology bubbles don't erase progress. If the AI bubble bursts, it won't be the algorithms that vanish. It will be the inflated expectations, the flashy projects built on hype rather than substance. What will endure are the tools that genuinely enhance human capability. Systems that analyze data faster, build complex structures, accelerate scientific discovery, and automate tedious tasks. Only what truly expands human thinking will remain, rather than digital hallucinations with no real value. Investors may chase market capitalization for years, but eventually the question becomes undeniable. What's the actual benefit? If the bubble bursts, it will hit markets, employees, and investors hard, but it could actually be a blessing for the technology itself. The frenzy, the hype, the race for hundreds of billions valuations that will fade, and attention will finally return to real-world applications that truly matter. Today, through the lens of one individual, Sam Altman, I've tried to tell the story of an era that seems to have accelerated beyond control. A story of ambition, risk, and the dizzying speed of technological change.